These gardens are at least 350 years old. This doorway is the entrance to a path along the outside of the walled garden, and also allows you to look down on the lower garden. This gated room is a storage space under the gazebo, which is situated in the walled garden. Opposite this gated room is a flight of steps leading down to the lower garden. At the right time of year, the apple trees will be in full bloom, as will the rose bushes later on. After the Second World War, the gardens were neglected and became overgrown, and the gazebo became a ruin. In 1985, the City of Durham Council purchased the gardens and started a programme of restoration which lasted 15 years. Again, in the year 2000, the garden maintenance was neglected. In 2010, the Friends of Old Durham Gardens organisation was formed, and since then the volunteers have maintained and helped to manage the gardens. The trees and shrubs are shaped as they would have been in the 17th century. The two seats by the side of the gazebo, known as the Newton Hall seats, are the subject of an interesting historic story. When it was decided that seats were needed in the restored walled garden, it was realised that a letter from Sir Henry Liddell to his son had been found in the city archives at Sheffield. This letter, dated 1723, contained a drawing of a seat that Sir Henry proposed to install at Newton Hall, Durham, which was the Liddell family home. The cost of making the seats using the original drawing would be several thousands of pounds. Fortunately, a generous, anonymous donor provided the money. The work was to be done by Rupert McBain of Westholme Hall, Winton, one of the region's leading woodworkers. This is a picture of a completed seat in his workshop prior to final painting. The seats were placed in the garden in 2016. The seats are noted for the unique sleds which enable the seats to be moved on grass without danger of sinking into the ground. Also, the design included a footrest to avoid ladies' long skirts to touch the ground whilst seating. During the summer months, concerts take place in the walled garden. If you pay a visit, you'll be made very welcome. Owned by the University of Durham, this garden covers 25 acres and was located at this site in 1970. Here, ballerina Dame Margaret Fontaine is seen officially opening the garden in 1988. At that time, she was the Chancellor of the University. The visitor reception is in the cafe, and this is where payment is made. The first thing the visitor will notice is the useful way of using old boots. There are many areas for the patrons to have a picnic using tables and chairs, and they can buy refreshments at the cafe or bring their own food and drink. Every part of the garden provides seats, enabling the visitor to sit and admire the view. Probably this arrangement of seats is to encourage complete strangers to talk to each other. This collection of trees show the many different shades of green that nature provides. The garden has numerous works of art on display, and this one is called the Vessels of Life and was designed and presented to the university by the Maharaja of Baroda. Inspired by the millennium, local artist Graham Hopper spent 8 months creating this giant bug and its offspring. There are many trees and plants from around the world on show, including water plants. The greenhouses are extremely popular and have a vast array of cacti from many countries. This tank full of water plants complete our look at the idyllic garden. And don't worry, this creature is not real. The museum is also owned by the University of Durham, and although the building is small, it displays over 33,000 exhibits. It was opened in 1960. On the night of April the 4th, 2012, 2 gang members drilled a large hole through the building and gained entrance. They stole these 2 items, which were valued at £2 million. The 2 felons buried these objects in waste ground. When one of them went to recover the loot, he forgot where they buried it. A witness saw him on the waste ground digging and talking in an exaggerated manner on his mobile phone. The police arrested them both and recovered the stolen items. At court, one was sentenced to 9 years in prison and the other 8 years. The reception is immediately in front of the Chinese collection, which is just one of the many collections. You need at least 2 hours to see them all. And so we leave the mummies to continue their centuries of rest and move to our next gem. The manor house and garden is the oldest of our gems, the house being built in the 13th century. There are two extensions to the original building, one completed in the 17th century and the other in the 18th. There has been many owners of Crook Hall, and the name Crook Hall is a corruption of the name of the second owner, Peter Del Crook. The property is now owned by Keith and Maggie Bell, who bought it in 1995 and opened the house to the public. It is now a popular wedding venue. Visitors come from around the world to see the gardens as well as to explore the hall. This modern cafe is also where you register to view the house, and where maps and information sheets are supplied. The maze has two entrances, so that visitors can have a race to see who reaches the centre first. As in the Botanic Garden, there are seats available throughout the site. The plants here are the same as was grown in Shakespeare's time. It is said that Shakespeare had an eye for the ladies, and this lady is not a living statue. She is actually a genuine visitor, ignoring the camera while studying. Could this be Anne Hathaway? This statue is very revealing, and note, the seat faces the front. These shaped bushes are meant to represent monks who once lived in the cathedral. This door gives access to the medieval hall. It is claimed that a ghost known as the White Lady haunts this area, and several visitors have claimed to have seen her. This is the exhibition room, which displays items saved by previous owners. The Keith referred to is actually Mr. Bell, the owner, who turns out to be a talented painter. In the tea room, a pleasant young lady employee is really happy in her job.
I've worked here now for 3 years and it's a lovely place to work. Being out in the gardens in the sunshine, serving people beautiful afternoon teas. Everything's homemade, so it's just a lovely family workplace. They're really flexible and just really lovely bosses, so yeah, I love the history, and I actually came with my family before I even started working here, and we went around all the gardens and things like that. Yeah, I remember picking the plums from the trees when I was about like 14, and now I'm here about 7 years later, still working here. So.
That's it, folks. It is to be hoped that this short video has sparked some interest in these gems of Durham City.